in my head sometimes I'm still like, someday I should finish that, and then I'm like, nope, 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 nope. Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is Book Chats. Just a really quick thing, I am using my fancy new webcam, but I don't have my fancy lights up, so the quality of this will be mediocre. Sorry about that. I'm really exhausted, but I wanted to film something for you guys. The topic this week, when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's just gonna be a one rant after another, because this is the top 5 books I did not finish, and I chose to interpret that as like the books that I didn't finish because I really, really didn't want to. The top 3 are books that I have very strong feelings towards. But I also have had some stuff happen in my life this past week. I will probably not rant about these books, but sometime if you meet me in person, you can ask me about them, and if it's been a couple months, I'll probably rant your ear off. So book number 5 is actually one that just personally I couldn't continue reading, and that is Tantalized by Cynthia Leitake Smith. I think that's how you say her name. I was listening to this book on audio several years ago when I was driving myself to a summer college class, and I had to stop listening to it because it was giving me road rage. Basically, I didn't like one of the characters and the decisions she was making, and that character was the narrator, and I felt like there were things coming that I saw coming and she didn't, and it's very frustrating, and I realized that I was getting way too angry while I was driving, so I had to stop reading the book. I kind of picked the 5 books that had the most interesting reasons, by the way, so I would love to know, though, if you have ever not finished a book because it was giving you road rage. Hopefully you were audiobooking it and not reading it while driving. Second book I want to talk about is actually one that I had to stop reading for, there's a couple books that I've had to stop reading for this similar reason. The book is The Warlocks Curse by M.K. Hobson, and this is the first in a duet that is kind of the sequel to a duet I really, really, really liked. And then I saw that she had self-published this kind of sequel duet, and I was so excited. I bought the first book for my Kindle, and I started reading it, and it was so dark. Like, immediately almost, it was so dark. Like, I even looked at reviews, because usually before I do not finish a book, if I'm like not sure whether or not to finish it, I'll look up reviews on Goodreads and I'll try to find spoilers, and I'll see whether or not I should finish it. And this one, like, I looked at the Goodreads reviews, or I looked up something the author wrote, I think, and she was like, yeah, this is a lot darker than, you know, the previous duet, and I was like, I can't do it. Now I'm on to the books that I have really strong feelings about having not finished, and so hopefully I can explain this in a reasonable way and not take too long and too much of your time. Book number 3 is Made to Crave. So I have a big problem with this book. I actually did review this one on Goodreads because I had such a big problem with this book. So if you don't know what this book is and you're like, what is she talking about? It's a Christian nonfiction book that's marketed at women, and it sells very well, and I had known about it for years, and I had it on my to-read list because I thought, and I'm gonna be very clear, like, I had made this up in my head, and it's very clear what this book is actually about, but I somehow completely missed that until I picked it up. I thought that the book was about how, like, we are, as humans, are, like, made to crave God, and that we, like, try to put God in our lives, and, like, it was, like, a deep spiritual book. But I picked it up, and it is a dieting book. Yes, the subtitle of the book, the cover of the book, and if I had actually read the description, I would have known this. As soon as I started listening to it on audio, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a dieting book. And I knew almost right away I was not going to like it, but I thought I would actually finish it. I don't like, for many reasons, among some of them, just I felt like it was this really fluffy self-help dieting book with like a sprinkling of very superficial spirituality, and I felt like that really frustrated me with the way that it was marketed, the way that it was marketed almost exclusively at women, the way that it acted like your weight is associated with how like spiritual you are, and the way that it acts like the only reason you can be overweight is that you overeat, which is not really true. Those all really frustrated me, but I was like, I'm gonna finish it, I'm gonna write a review about how much I dislike it. And then I was listening to it on audio, and at the end of every chapter there's these discussion questions, and every time I got to the discussion questions, the questions just made me feel bad. Like, they're always about like how you are inadequate, like the things that you're bad at, like the food or spiritually or whatever, and it just was like, I cannot listen to this because it is going to be actively bad for me. So like I stopped reading it, and I wrote a very like longish review on Goodreads about how bad I thought that this book is and how I do not understand why this is being marketed the way it is, or not why it's being marketed the way it is because money. I don't know the author. I don't know her other work. I'm sure she had very good intentions, but just, I can't believe this book is so popular. I feel like it could actively hurt people. So that is why I did not finish Made to Crave. My book number 2 also has a fun story behind it for books I did not finish. So I can't remember which of these elements came first, like me actually picking the book up and trying to read it, or the reason that I definitely will never pick it up again, or not even that definitely will never pick it up again, but just the reason I will never pick up another book by this author. That book is No One Else Can Have You by Kathleen Hale. Some of you might know what I'm going to talk about. So first, I want to be really clear. I did pick up this book, I did try to read it, and I did not like the book. I didn't like the book because I felt like it was, I mean, I'd have to look up my notes specifically, but I felt like it was kind of like offensive. The character was kind of slut-shamey, and I felt like I could see what the answer was going to be anyway, and it wasn't really going to be a mystery, and I just really did not like the book itself. But then also, guess what happened? So some of you might have heard of this. Kathleen Hale is an author who is kind of infamous in the Goodreads or like book blogging community because she wrote an article in The Guardian about how she stalked someone who wrote a bad review of her book. This was right about the time that I was thinking I wanted to get involved in BookTube, but before I actually got involved in BookTube, and it was genuinely scary because before that I was thinking what could really happen that would be bad? The bookish community, what are people really gonna do? People live their lives online. No, I'm an adult. I can have reasonable precautions. And then I read this article, and if you haven't read it, I think it's called Am I Being Catfished or something like that by Kathleen Hale, and basically she doesn't interpret her actions as stalking. She thinks that she got this bad review, she became obsessed with this bad review, she thought that maybe the person who reviewed her was not really who they portrayed themselves as online, and she stalked the person to their house to try to meet them, and went through all this nefarious stuff to get a hold of that person's address, and was just very not professional and creepy. And she presented this whole thing as boo-hoo, look at me as an author, we have to deal with anonymous criticism on the internet. And it's just it's so out of touch. It's so threatening as someone who reviews books online, and it almost made me not enter the BookTube space, which would have been so sad because I really enjoy being part of BookTube and interacting with you guys here. Things like this from professional authors published in major on major websites like The Guardian's website, that is not okay. It also has made every other bad author behavior look tame in comparison. And then the number 1 book that I did not finish is the one that I immediately thought of when I heard this topic, and I actually debated for a long time whether or not to talk about this on my channel, because what you guys may or may not know is I don't talk about books I don't finish on my channel. Some of it's because I don't I don't review them on Goodreads, so why would I talk about them on my channel really? But this book I seriously considered making a video about, and then I decided not to, and then I decided I was just going to talk about it today. So I have a couple problems with this book, but the biggest problem I have with this book, and the reason I almost made a video about it, is that I feel the advertising and marketing for this book is intentionally misleading, and I have a really big problem with that. So I'm going to tell you what the book is, and then I'm going to go into spoiler territory about what's in the book. So the book is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I think that there's other problems with this book. Specifically, it kind of has an ableist bent, and if you want to hear just about the ableist argument and not about the spoiler that I just mentioned, you should go check out Trina's review. She did a great review that is non-spoilery, but does talk about some of the problematic content with how the book portrays the disabled character, or the character with a disability in it. So the thing about this book is that if you have seen any of the marketing around it, or around the film, or you've seen the trailer for the film, the idea that you have of what this book is or isn't about is probably wildly different from what the book is actually about. Again, spoiler warning, I am about to spoil this book by telling you what it's actually about. This book is actually an argument for assisted suicide. And at 100 pages in, I knew what was going to happen at the end of this book. But I kept reading it, and then I got about 80% of the way through the book, and I put it down, partly because I had to go to bed, and partly because I just couldn't handle it. Like, it was frustrating me, and I knew what was going to happen, because it became increasingly clear throughout reading the book that what I thought was going to happen at about page 100 was definitely going to happen. And every time I looked at that book after I put it down, I couldn't pick it up again because I just felt like ill. I think what really frustrates me is that I've read books that have arguments about assisted suicide before. Usually they're nonfiction. Like Being Mortal has a little bit of kind of a flavor of that in it. I love Being Mortal. I recommend it to people all the time. I have a little note in my review that I'm not sure how I feel about that part of it, but I love the book as a whole. What I don't like is this constructed, fabricated, fictional piece of work that is designed to pull at your heartstrings, to emotionally manipulate you, and is intentionally deceptive in its marketing. I mean, the reason I did not finish this book is because it made me feel like I was going to be ill when I looked at it. Like, made me, the pit of my stomach churn. So that's why I didn't finish this book. But the reason that I feel so strongly about like this book, and I feel very upset about this book, is because of what I believe is deceptive marketing. Thank you for listening to my long rambles about these books that I didn't like and I didn't finish. I would love to hear below what reasons you don't finish books. Also, I want a really quick note at the end of this. I hit 500 subscribers earlier this week, and thank you so much. I feel really happy about that. I'm really excited about that. I'm so grateful about that. I might do something to celebrate it, but I probably won't do something for at least a week, maybe 2. Something has come up in my personal life that is taking a huge chunk of my time, and I will be catching up with work after that. I'm going to be on an airplane for a lot of time in the coming days, so hopefully I can read some good books and also maybe edit all the videos that I have filmed that are just waiting to be edited. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!